and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I'm going to bring you 3 really fun dupes that I got inspiration from big store decor. So rather than doing an all Kirkland's video or all Pottery Barn, I picked 3 of my favorite decor pieces from big box stores that I wanted to try to do myself. Now first, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that little notification bell so you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, hit the drop down menu and click all so you're notified about all notifications. Then join me on Facebook and Instagram and let's get social. Give me a like and a follow on those platforms to see the behind the scene content I know you don't want to miss. All right, let's get started with our dupes for the day. For my first DIY, I'm going to start off by using this plastic tray that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give it about 2.5 really good coats of ivory chalk paint. And when I say 2.5, what I mean is 2 full coats and then just touch up any places that need some extra paint or may have gotten scratched or the paint came off. After it was dry, I took my ruler and I stuck it in the middle of my tray. I made a pencil mark on the top of my ruler and on the bottom, and then I moved my ruler up and down using the lines that I had previously drawn as my guide. So I'm going to make this look like shiplap lines, so I'm just going to go all the way down the middle of my tray. So I'm just going to work my way up and then my way down. I know it looks like that these lines are not straight, but they are, I promise. After that, I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to rub over each one of these lines to really give it that shiplap look. I've tried a lot of different methods, but this pencil method and then you rub it with your finger works the best for me. After that, I'm going to take this little chunky brush, and you know me, I love to make things look rustic. So I'm going to dry brush some Waverly Antique Wax all over this tray. I'm really going to pay attention to the edges around the tray and also the corners, because I want those to be a little darker and to highlight them a little bit more. After that, I'm going to take these 16mm beads that I got from Amazon, and the link is in the description box below, and I am simply going to hot glue these all around the top part of my tray. Now, I'm making sure to glue the beads on so the holes of the beads are on the sides, and then what I'm doing is actually putting a line of glue down, and I'm also going to start putting a little dot of glue on the side of each bead so it connects to the one before it. So I am just going to go all the way around this tray. Now you can see that some of these beads are different colors. That's okay because we are actually going to paint those. So even though this DIY was so easy to do, it was a little time consuming. So just take your time. Glue all of your beads on, put on some music, a movie, watch something fun, a snack even maybe. But I'm just making sure that these are really glued down. After I had these all glued down, I even went in between the beads and just put a little dab of glue in each one of them in between. So here you can see that I'm just squirting a little dab of glue in between each one of those beads to give them a little extra support. So I'm just going to go around. After that, I took my ivory chalk paint again, and I am messily, if that makes sense, painting these beads. So I am not going for full coverage on these beads. I am just painting, but I'm doing a little bit more than dry brushing, if that makes sense. So I am going in with a smaller brush. The foam brush was just a little too big. So I'm going to go in with a smaller brush, and I'm just going to paint all these beads. Now, this dupe comes from an inspiration from Walmart, and on the Walmart tray, they actually had these beads very, very distressed. So what I'm going to do now is take some fine grit sandpaper, and I am just going to sand these beads down so that way a lot of the natural wood comes through from underneath. And I probably wasn't even using the right sandpaper. I should have probably got even stronger or harder sandpaper, but I just used what I had. But I just totally distressed these beads so you can see a lot of the natural wood come through. And that's why I said earlier you don't really need to go for full coverage when you paint these beads because we were just going to distress them anyways. So after my tray was complete, it was time to pull out one of these new calendars. And from this calendar, I'm going to use the September page, and I'm simply going to cut out this truck. Now, I am going to cut around it so I have just the truck and try to get all the white around it. And then I do go around the pumpkins and the stems, and I also cut out the window as well. So all I'm going to be using here is this truck. Now, this is where the tray kind of switches up a little bit from the dupe because I did not have the exact image they used, so I just used my own, but I think it came out pretty close besides that. After that, I printed off Welcome Fall from my Cricut, and of course you can use stickers or stencils or rub-on letters. And now I'm just kind of working with my positioning here. And I wanted the welcome and fall to kind of be offset, and I wanted the truck to be under the fall, but obviously offset from that too. So I'm just going to figure out where I want my tray or everything on my tray to be. So I'm just arranging my words, arranging the truck, making sure it's all lined up. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and push my letters down by using this little tool from Cricut. And then it came off easy peasy. Now, before I put this transfer tape paper on my tray, I did fuzz it on my pants a little bit so it wasn't so sticky. After that, I went ahead and applied some Mod Podge to the bottom of my tray, and then I decided just to go ahead and go over the letters as well. And then I put my truck right on top of the Mod Podge. And then I'm going to put one more coat of Mod Podge all over my truck and the letters. That way it protects the letters and the paper. Now, this calendar paper is extremely thin, so I always get wrinkles, but it doesn't really bother me because I think it just adds to the rustic look, so I think it's fine. So now to distress it down a little bit more, I'm taking my little sanding block and I'm just sanding the letters down so they're not so bold and black. And then I'm also kind of doing that to the truck, but you want to be very careful when you go over the truck. All right, so the tray did have handles, and they were like wire black handles. So I was trying to think, okay, what can I use? And I found these little easels at the Dollar Tree, so I thought, okay, I'm going to use these. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. If the tray at Walmart did not have handles, I would not have put handles on this. This was a pain, but for the sake of the dupe and getting it to look like the one from Walmart, I'm going to add the handles, but I'll be honest, I'm probably going to take them off. So the first thing I did was use my wire cutters to cut off the top part of each one of the easels, and this was kind of hard. It was just not an easy snap with the wire cutters. It was tough. So what you have to do is you just kind of have to keep scoring it with your wire cutters, kind of just snip, 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 and then you bend it back and forth until finally the top breaks off. So that's what I'm doing. I mean, it was a good workout, I guess. So finally I got one end off. So I'm pushing really hard. And you can see where it is kind of like, making a mark, but you do just kind of go back and forth until they break off. So finally, after I had both of my easels cut down, I thought that it might be best to add some duct tape around the bottoms of the ends of the little easels, because it would help have something to adhere to the tray. So after I had the duct tape on, I flipped over my tray. I added a ton of hot glue, and another reason why I added the duct tape was because metal and hot glue don't get along, so I thought it would stick better to the duct tape. So now I'm just going to reinforce it with even more duct tape, and you do kind of have to hold it there until the glue sets up. Now, this is when I say I just would not have gone through any of this if there weren't handles on the original piece, because it was kind of a pain to figure out how to attach these without, I couldn't staple these in because this is plastic. But if you have any ideas on how I could have attached this wire handle to this plastic tray, please let me know, because I was honestly racking my brain, and as you saw, I did put some permanent glue there to kind of help it hold, but you're going to see what I have to end up doing, and it was just not good. So the handles really weren't sticking very well, so I did have to put some duct tape on the bottom. Now, obviously this is red duct tape and it does not go with this tray at all. I don't know if I had some silver or some white, and I guess I could have painted the duct tape. I just thought of that. But you can't see it from the bottom, but I know it's there, and it does stick out. Like the handles just would not stick no matter what glue I used or what tape I used. But nonetheless, that's what I ended up doing on both sides. So I took my second easel, and again, I'm just going to wrap the ends, the points, with some duct tape. That way it helps to adhere the handle down better to the plastic. And I did make sure to go over the point as well, like cover the end. Then again, I'm going to flip my tray over, add some hot glue and that permanent glue, that super glue. And the other tray actually did have some feet, so I did decide to take some 20 millimeter beads and add a bead on every corner, kind of like on the inside of my tray. To do this, I did just use some hot glue, and even though it really does look like an eyesore underneath, the handles are actually functional. I could actually use the handles. So the only thing that was different was on the handles on the Walmart tray, they did have beads or some kind of spindle or something, but I just did not want to fight and try to use my wire cutters to cut it open again. So I just decided to skip that. But otherwise, I really love how this tray came out. Like I said, I might go ahead and take off the handles, but either way, I'm in love. Now, here's a look at the one from Walmart. It was $23, not bad, but when I saw it, I just knew I could make it with what I had. What do you think? For my second dupe, I am kind of getting my inspiration from something I saw at Big Lots. My mom wanted a new door hanger for her front door for fall, and actually she described it, and then I happened to find what she was looking for on the Big Lots website, and again, I had the stuff to make it. So the first thing I'm going to do is start off with this wooden pumpkin, again from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to use my scraper to pop off those leaves. I did not end up using these leaves in this DIY, but I knew I could use them in the future, so I saved them. I was also trying to save these letters, or these words, and you see how well that turned out. But using my scraper really did help a lot. So after I had all of the pieces off of my pumpkin, I chose just to flip it over on its back, and I am going to fill the holes, so I just used some of my Dollar Tree spackling to do that, and then once the spackle dried, I sanded it down. That way it was nice and smooth and ready for me to paint. So for this first pumpkin out of 3, we are going to be painting each of the pumpkins 3 different colors. So this first one is going to be ivory. Now, I am also using 3 different sizes of pumpkins, so you are going to see that as well. But for the first one, like I said, I gave it a good coat of ivory chalk paint. This is the second one I'm using, and it is a jack-o'-lantern, and of course I had to pull off the 3D mouth, and then I flipped it over. I cut off the little string there, the ribbon, and again, I'm going to cover my holes because I'm not going to actually be using any of the holes. Then I'm going to sand it down, and this time I'm actually going to paint this in agave because my mom is more blue toned in her house and outside. If you remember from our front porch makeover, she had a lot of blues. So I am going to use that. In the actual inspiration in the one for Big Lots, it was like a green. So that would be the change that I made here. So once I gave that a paint of agave, I put that to the side and I grabbed the bigger pumpkin, and I am just prying off this little metal leaf. I am going to be using that leaf in this DIY, so I am going to keep it close. And then I decided I wanted to take my sand sponge and just sand all that glitter off. So right now I'm doing it over my trash can. That's why you couldn't see it. That way it didn't, shed all over everything. Next, again, I'm going to fill in my holes, sand it down. And I am actually going to paint this in the pumpkin orange paint from Waverly. So the colors I'm using are ivory, agave, and pumpkin, and they are all chalk paints from Waverly. And I really got away with just doing one coat on each one of these pumpkins. Now, as you can see, I did not do the stems. So for the stems, I'm going to use my nutmeg apple barrel paint, and I'm going to do that for all of my stems. I'm going to make sure that I have full coverage on the stems, and then I'm going to paint each of them. The cool thing I really loved about these pumpkins is that they all had different shaped stems, so I thought that it made each one look even more unique. So after I painted my stems, it was time to make these look like pumpkins. So what I did was I took my Waverly Antique Wax and a small detail brush, and I'm just drawing those pumpkin lines. I'm following the shape of the pumpkin. I'm doing the little, like the curves, and I am also going around the perimeter too. That way it highlighted those as well. Now, the Big Lots pumpkins, they were 3D, but I didn't have any more of those 3D pumpkins, so I'm just kind of making it look, have the illusion of it being 3D, and I'm just doing my best to give it that illusion. So, like I said, I'm just dry brushing that antique wax all around it, and then I'm going to go a little bit in the middle as well to give it even more detail and highlighting. So, as you can see, I'm just, kind of filling in wherever it looks like it needs. Then I grabbed my blue one, and I'm going to do the same thing. And you can see that I'm just following the curves and the bumps that are already on each one of the pumpkins. And each one of them is a different shape, so they are all going to look a little different. So, and then again, I'm just going to go over this entire thing with little strokes of the Waverly Antique Wax to give it even more dimension. And it was super easy to do. I actually really enjoy doing stuff like this. It's just, it's painting, and I really have enjoyed doing that. Then I'm going to grab my orange pumpkin, and I'm going to do the same thing. And this time I'm actually using my finger to kind of rub it in. And I wish I would have thought to do that on the other two because I liked the look this gave. It made it look kind of more, kind of more blended, I guess. And I think this one came out the best out of all of them. So I would say if you're going to do this, definitely use your finger to help blend these lines in. I just thought that it helped with like the shadowing. It made it look realistic. Again, it could be this one. I thought this one looked best because it is actually orange too. So that could be it as well. But as you can see, I'm using the points of the pumpkin, and I'm using the lines that are already there to go ahead and just follow the curves of the pumpkin. And again, I'm paying attention to the edges. And then I am going down, and I did this on the other two pumpkins as well, but I'm kind of just adding some shading and highlighting to the bottom of those pumpkins too. So then I'm just going to go in between each one of the little sections and add some highlighting there too. And again, I'm using my finger to go ahead and blend it in. I really loved the way that this one turned out. Like I said, I think this one looks the best out of all of them. So after that was done, I took this little wood plank that I got from the Dollar Tree. It's just a little wood piece, and it's the rectangle, and I'm giving it a faux stain by dipping a wipe into my Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm just doing the front and the sides. The back is not going to be seen. Then I'm going to dry brush my ivory paint. I didn't even dip this brush back into the paint after I was finished painting the pumpkin. I just used whatever was on the brush, and I'm just dry brushing over that little wood piece. Next, I'm going to take my crocodile tool, and this actually makes holes in wood and metal and different materials, and I just punched 2 holes. And then I took this little metal welcome sign that I pulled off of another DIY and gave it a good coat of white chalk paint. After that, it was time to glue that welcome word on to the wooden sign. And again, like I said earlier, metal and hot glue don't mix, so I'm using that permanent or that super glue and hot glue so that way I can adhere this word onto this wooden plaque. And I did kind of do it at an angle because that's what it looked like on the original piece from Big Lots. So I just went ahead and glued it down. So after I make sure that all of my, or that my word is completely glued down, I just decided I wanted to distress it a little bit more. Then I'm going to take the blue pumpkin, and this one is going to be the middle pumpkin. And I'm going to put my plank on top, and then by using some twine, that's actually how I'm going to attach this to the pumpkin. So I'm going to take my twine, put it through the back of the wood piece, tie a few knots on top of each other to make it one big knot, or look like it was one big knot, and then I'm going to wrap it around the stem of that blue pumpkin and do the same thing. I'm going to tie a couple knots so that way this is on my my pumpkin, this little sign. And there we go. And then I am going to adjust it. And again, it was kind of angled on the pumpkin, so I am going to glue it down like that. And I did also tack those little knots down with hot glue as well. And there we go. So that is what our middle pumpkin is going to look like. Next, I'm going to take that metal leaf that I got off that one big pumpkin originally, and I'm just going to hot glue it to the stem. Now, I always buy multiples of things, so I did happen to have more metal leaves because I had more of those orange pumpkins, so I used those to put on the other ones as well. And then I just decided that it needed a little bit more highlighting and dimension, so I'm just adding a little bit more in with my paintbrush and my Waverly Antique Wax. Then I grabbed the other two leaves and went ahead and put those on the other two pumpkins. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you're seeing so far, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my page to grow, but it also tells YouTube that you like what you're seeing and you want to see more of my content. So it'll throw more of my videos and your suggested videos on your homepage. So please hit that like button. So after I got the orange pumpkin done, I went ahead and glued the leaf on the white one, and then again just took my brush and gave it a little bit more detail and highlighting. Then it was time to assemble our sign. So what I did was I lined each one of my pumpkins up, and the white one is on top, the blue one is in the middle, and then I flipped them upside down. Then I took some of this nautical rope and I used almost a whole strand of it, and by using this super glue and my hot glue, I'm going to glue the rope on the back of each one of my pumpkins. Now I did kind of cut it off, but at the top I did leave some slack there so you can hang it, and it is just one piece, so it starts at the end, goes all the way up, around, and down. So I know this is not two separate pieces, this is all the same piece of nautical rope. So after I get the first one glued on, I just moved to the second one, and I'm trying to keep the rope very straight so that way it lays really nice. And there we go. And again, I did push these down, kind of waited for them to dry. Then after I got the second one done, I moved to the third one and did the same thing. And after that was done, I went ahead and cut off the leftover rope. So I really love how this sign came out. My mom loved it too, and she really loved the colors. She loved the blue instead of the green. So here's a look at the one from Big Lots. So like I said, those are 3D, $14, not bad, but I just wanted to give it a try. What do you think? This last dupe was another one that my mom saw at Hobby Lobby, and she asked me if I could make it, and I really wanted to attack this one. I just thought I totally could make it. So I'm using 4 different signs for this, and they are all different heights because in the Hobby Lobby one, they were all different heights. So first one I'm going to use is this autumn sign that or fall sign, and I had to pry off that frame. This was kind of tough, but then I got a system, and what I did was used a knife, actually that little scraping knife right there, that tool, and that really helped. So you're going to see the first thing we're going to do is prep all of our box boards, and these are all box signs. So after I get the front frame off, I am going through and sanding it down so it's smooth. Next, I'm using this little board or this sign from Easter, and I'm just going to sand all of the glitter down. And then I'm going to use this other sign, and these are 2 different sizes. Now, they obviously are not going to have these Easter ones, but they do have something like this in stores now for fall. Next, I'm going to use this gather sign, but I don't actually need the gather part, so this was so simple to take off. I just put my little scraper underneath and I pried it off. Next, I gave each one a couple coats of ivory chalk paint. Now I do have these lined up how I'm going to arrange them. So I did the biggest, wider one first, then the square, then the taller rectangle, and then the even taller rectangle. Now those 2 smaller ones did have hangers on the back, so I did have to pry those off as well. So next it was time to, of course, distress these. So by using that little chunky brush, I'm going to dry brush over each one of these boards with my Waverly Antique Wax. And I'm just going to make sure to really pay attention to the edges and the sides of these as well, because I really wanted to highlight those and to kind of give it that chippy wood look and that rustic look. So this sign was so big it was hard for me to keep it in frame, so that's why a little bit's going to be cut off here and there. So, but I am definitely trying my best. Now, if I got a little heavy-handed with the Waverly Antique Wax, I just used my my foam brush with the ivory paint on it, and I just kind of went over it just to kind of dull it down a little bit. But I went in between using the ivory paint and the Waverly Antique Wax until I got the look I was going for. So I'm just working on it until I like it. And like I said, I really loved how this came out. I think it actually came pretty darn close to the original. So now I'm just kind of taking away some of that brown because I realized it was just a little too much. So now it's time to arrange all these. Now, as you can tell, the frame of these box signs not that thick, so I decided to add some tumbling tower blocks to each one on the inside. That way it gave it more support and something to hold on to. So I just hot glued the tumbling tower blocks to the inside of the signs, but they're flush up against the top of the frame. I really hope that makes sense. So after I got the first one done, it was time to hot glue this board on top of the second one. So I'm just adding some hot glue, and I'm going to place it on top of the on the square one off to the side. So on the side of my box sign there. And I have to hold it down until the glue sets. Next, I took the rectangular sign, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add some tumbling tower blocks so it has something to adhere to. I'm going to add a good amount of hot glue and then hot glue that one to the other side of the smaller sign. Now, you do want to make sure that at the bottom, and I'm sorry, I know it's cut off, but you want to make sure it's all even so it stands straight. Next, I turned the whole thing over, and now I'm going to add some tumbling tower blocks to the inside of that third little rectangle, and I'm going to just hot glue those on. And then once I have all of those pieces hot glued, I'm going to flip it over and hot glue that on top of the taller box sign. And again, like I said, you want to make sure that you keep this all lined up at the bottom so it stands up straight and it's not wobbly. There we go. So, and now I'm going to go through and just add some hot glue where I see necessary, just to give it a little extra support. All right, so now it is time to add some more distressing. And in the one from Hobby Lobby, there was just like random strokes of Waverly Antique Wax. So what I'm doing is just going around the edges of my each one of these boards to make them pop a little bit more. Then you're going to see that I just add random strokes of the antique wax in the middle of each one of these boards too, because that's how it was in the original one. So there you go. I'm just making random strokes, and then I'm brushing them on with my finger, kind of rubbing it with my finger, making them all blend in. I really do think that this touch like really brought all of these to life. I really love this. This piece came out so cute. I really want to take it with me when I move, but I made it for my mom. So I did notice that that big square, or the rectangle, the first board we did, was not, it was just kind of flimsy. So what I'm doing is actually adding tumbling tower blocks, kind of like as a stand to the back of the frame on that one. And I know I cut it off here, but I ended up adding 3 to help hold it up, and that really helped. So it just gave it some extra support. Now, I did forget, while I was doing this, I wanted to paint that ivory and I forgot, but I do end up going back. Then with my Cricut, I printed out some letters, but again, you can do this with stencils, you can freehand it, you can do it with rub-on transfers, you can do it with stickers, but I just spelled out fall, and I did each letter a little differently. I made them proportional to the sign that it was going to be on. So next I am weeding all of this out. And if you are a seasoned Cricut person, you are probably cringing with the way I'm doing this because I just wasted so much black vinyl, but I really did not know of any other way to do that. So I am just weeding it all off. And then rather than using transfer tape to put these on, I'm honestly just going to peel it off like a sticker and apply it to my board. So of course, the first one I did was an F. So I just took it off just like a sticker. And then I'm going to apply it right in the middle of that first one. Now I am kind of making it a little lower on the board because we will be adding a leaf and some raffia, so I don't want to, get in the way of that. Then I'm going to add my A, and got that right in the middle, and then my first L in the middle of the other one, and then last I have my tall, skinny L. Cool thing about this is that if you do make a mistake, it's easy to peel up and move. There you go. So now I'm getting my skinny L on, pushing it all down, making sure it is all positioned correctly. Then I'm putting a coat of Mod Podge on the front. Now, you don't really have to do this, but because I'm a newer Cricut user, I just feel more comfortable putting it on. It just makes me feel better. So I'm going to apply Mod Podge all over each one of my little signs, just to protect the letters so they don't peel off. I don't think they're supposed to, but like I said, it just makes me feel better. So after that, I'm going to be using some plunger sticks to create some stems. Now you do see I have some foam brush handles there. I don't actually use those. I just have like this scrap plunger brush or plunger stick. So I cut them down the heights that I wanted, and I did cut them at a 45-degree angle because in the original piece, they were like at an angle. So and I did cut them different lengths, and then just kind of decided which one looked best on which sign. And I am sanding these down as well because they were kind of, ragged at the end. And now I'm going to faux stain them, and I'm going to dip my baby wipe into Waverly Antique Wax and just brush all over the stems. And then once they were all faux stained, this is when I'm trying to figure out which stem looks best where. And I am going to alternate, so I'm going to put one facing the right side, just like that. And I'm just using hot glue to attach these. It works out fine. And then I'm going to have the second one, sorry about my head, facing the left. And then again, I'm just going to repeat it. This one facing the right. There we go. And then the fourth one facing the left. You can see that it's really coming out. You might have even seen this piece in Hobby Lobby if you're an avid Hobby Lobby shopper. All right, so next I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to take off a huge piece and then I'm going to put it down on my table. And next I'm going to take these little leaves. Now these little leaves have clothespins on them and they are so hard to get off. But you just have to just pry it off. I mean, you could take like maybe a knife and get under there and get it, but I mean, it is a little work, but I just really wanted these to be flat. So I really worked hard to get each one of the clothespins off. But see, eventually they do come off. So next, after I had 4 of them taken apart, I put them on my painter's tape, and this just makes it easier for them to paint. So that way they're not, you know, moving around and you're not totally getting paint all over your fingers. But I just used my Christmas green paint to paint the actual leaf part and then that nutmeg brown to paint the stem. So I'm just making sure it's all painted. And they all look like, I feel like it looks like lettuce here, but you know. And then I sanded them down just so it wasn't so green and it made it look rustic. And now it's time to hot glue these to our sign. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to simply use some hot glue. And I am putting them in different positions and facing different ways just to kind of change it up a little bit. There we go. And next I'm going to add a raffia bow to each one of the stems. And that's it. That completed this super cute dupe. I think this one's my favorite out of all of them because I think it looks the closest to the original. So, and it was a lot of fun to do. So here is the original, $17.99. Again, not bad. But when my mom asked me if I could do it, I said, sure, why not? Let's give it a try. What do you think? I absolutely loved how each one of these dupes came out. I have to say, I think they came pretty close to the original pieces, but I added my own twists on them, and that's the great thing about DIYing your own. That way you can use whatever colors you want or images you want and just really customize it to your taste and what you like. I think, like I said, my favorite is going to be that fall sign, this one right here, but the close second is going to be the tray. I love that tray. You're going to have to let me know down in the comments which one was your absolute favorite and if you'll be creating any of these this fall. You'll also have to let me know if you like these dupe videos and if you like the way that I take some pieces from stores and try to create them myself. I just want to know and make sure that you are loving the content I'm putting out. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you got lots of inspiration and ideas on some DIYs that you can do. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, then hit that little notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload a video. And a thumbs up is always appreciated. Well, until I see you again, I'll dupe and craft with you soon. Bye!